I was just about to grab that ceramic vase when another woman's hand brushed against mine. I jerked back like I'd been stung, not from displeasure but from something else entirely, something electric. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said, her blonde hair falling across one eye as she looked up at me. "Were you interested in this one too?" I nodded, finding my politician's voice suddenly caught in my throat. The handcrafted piece was stunning swirls of blue and green that reminded me of the ocean just blocks away from us here in Huntington Beach. "I've been eyeing it for weeks," I admitted, finally recovering. "Lindsay Parker." I extended my hand, campaign-ready smile automatically falling into place. "Imogen Flores." Her grip was firm, her green eyes direct. "I only saw it today, but it's exactly what my gallery's front window needs." And just like that, we were at an impasse in the tiny craft shop, both of us wanting the same damn vase. "Ladies, this is unprecedented." The shop owner, a bearded man with tattoos climbing up both arms, seemed more amused than concerned. "I've never had two customers physically grabbing for the same piece." "I'll pay double," I said quickly, my competitive nature kicking in. Being a city council member with mayoral aspirations had made winning second nature. Imogen raised an eyebrow. "That's hardly fair. Some of us don't have a politician's salary." The fact she recognized me was unsurprising. My face had been on enough campaign materials around town. What was surprising was how little I cared about maintaining my public image as we squared off over pottery. "How about this?" the owner suggested. "You two exchange numbers. Share custody. 1 month at your place, 1 month at hers. Like divorced parents with a ceramic child." We both laughed, breaking the tension. It was ridiculous enough to work. 20 minutes and one awkward phone number exchange later, I was late for my committee meeting. I barely focused as we discussed the new harbor regulations, my mind drifting to blonde hair and green eyes. When my phone buzzed with a text, "Coffee tomorrow? I want visitation rights planned properly." I caught myself smiling during the budget presentation. The following day, we met at a small cafe overlooking the water. Imogen was nothing like the people I usually surrounded myself with. Artists and dreamers were rare in political circles. She talked about the small gallery she helped manage, her hands animated, passion evident. "Enough about me," she said eventually. "Tell me something not in your campaign bio." Rain had started outside, pattering against the windows. "I collect ugly refrigerator magnets from every city I visit," I confessed. "The tackier the better." Her laugh was warm, genuine. When the downpour intensified, we made a run for my car, ending up drenched despite the short distance. "Your makeup's running," she said, reaching up to brush my cheek with her thumb. The touch lingered. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe the rain, maybe the way the water had made her white blouse cling to her shoulders. I leaned forward and pressed my lips against hers. She tasted like coffee and surprise, freezing for just a moment before her hands found my waist. When we pulled apart, raindrops clung to her eyelashes like tiny diamonds. "Well," she breathed, "that wasn't in the custody agreement." I had no clever response, no political spin. For once in my professional life, I was speechless, wondering what the hell I'd just started and why my heart was racing like I'd just won an election. "Lindsay, you're 33 years old. It's time you settled down with someone appropriate." My Aunt Charlotte's voice carried that particular tone reserved for discussing my personal life, equal parts disappointment and determination. Across the expansive dining table, my 3 cousins and their picture-perfect spouses watched with barely concealed interest. Family dinners were political events in the Parker household. My rising career had made me the current favorite, but that position was always tenuous. Tonight's gathering at my uncle's Huntington Beach mansion was supposedly a celebration of my recent policy win, but had predictably devolved into a matrimonial intervention. "We've arranged for you to meet Robert Whitman next week," my uncle declared between sips of expensive scotch. "His father controls half the real estate development on the coast. The connection would be invaluable for your mayoral campaign." I stabbed a roasted carrot with unnecessary force. 3 days had passed since I'd kissed Imogen in the rain, and we'd shared coffee twice more since then. The memory of her lips made arranged dates with entitled developers' sons even more repulsive. "I'm focused on my campaign right now," I deflected. "Nonsense. A strong partnership shows stability to voters." My aunt's smile held no warmth. "Robert is quite handsome, Stanford educated. His last girlfriend was a model." The walls of familial expectation closed in tighter. My entire political career had been mapped by these people. the right schools, the right committees, the right mentors. Each step calculated for maximum advancement. And now, the right husband. Actually, I heard myself say before my brain could stop my mouth, I'm already engaged. The silence was immediate and complete. 6 pairs of eyes turned to me in perfect synchronization. Engaged? To whom? My uncle's voice had dropped dangerously low. Panic flooded my system. There was no backing out. My girlfriend, I pressed on, digging the hole deeper. We've been keeping it quiet because of the campaign timing. Girlfriend? My youngest cousin whispered the word like it was profanity. Yes, I said, lifting my chin. Her name is Imogen. She works in the arts. The next morning found me standing outside Coastal Vision's gallery, stomach in knots. Through the window, I could see Imogen arranging a display, her blonde hair twisted into a casual knot that somehow looked effortlessly elegant. When she spotted me, her smile was genuine. That made what I was about to do even worse. I need a huge favor, I blurted the moment she let me into the still-closed gallery. No greeting, no pleasantries. She blinked. Good morning to you too. I explained my predicament, watching her expression shift from confusion to disbelief as I recounted my impulsive lie. Let me get this straight, she said when I finished. You told your powerful political family that we're engaged, and now you want me to pretend to be your fiancé at a dinner next week. I'll pay you, I offered desperately. $5,000. Imogen's green eyes narrowed. I'm not for sale, councilwoman. I winced. That came out wrong. I'm drowning here. Why me? We barely know each other. What could I say? Because you're the first woman who's made me feel something real in years? Because that kiss has been replaying in my head like a favorite song? Because you're the only person I could think of, I admitted instead. She studied me for a long moment, then slowly set down the sculpture she'd been holding. I'll do it, she finally said, but not for money. Name your terms. I want 3 things. Imogen counted them on her fingers. First, you attend the gallery's fundraiser next month as our honored guest. Second, you agree to genuinely consider our proposal for the downtown arts district. And third, she stepped closer, challenge in her eyes. You have to be honest with me, completely honest about everything while we do this. No politician double talk. The terms were more reasonable than I deserved. Still, the honesty clause made my throat tighten. Honesty wasn't a politician's natural habitat. Deal, I said, extending my hand. She ignored it and leaned forward instead, her voice dropping to a whisper. And Lindsay, if we're doing this, we need to practice being convincing. When she kissed me, firm and deliberate, I realized I might have just entered a negotiation where I was thoroughly outmatched. Rule number 1, Imogen said, pacing my living room with a glass of wine. No surprise information. I need to know everything about you that a real fiancé would know. I sat on the couch, laptop open to a document titled The Lindsay Parker Backstory. 3 days had passed since our agreement, and Imogen was taking this charade more seriously than some of my campaign staff took actual elections. Favorite food? She quizzed. Thai, specifically Penang curry. But publicly I say California cuisine because it pulls better with locals. She pointed accusingly. That's exactly what I mean. I need the real you, not the campaign version. I sighed, closing my laptop. The real me eats cold pizza for breakfast and can't sleep without a fan running. Better. She flopped beside me, close enough that her knee touched mine. Now, how'd we meet? We need our story straight. The shop where we both wanted the vase. It's simple and has the benefit of being true. Imogen shook her head. Too recent. We need at least 6 months of history for an engagement to be believable. We spent the next hour crafting an elaborate backstory, how we'd met at a beach cleanup I'd organized, our first date at a hidden jazz club, my supposed proposal during a sunset sail. With each fabricated memory, the line between reality and fiction blurred further. We should practice being together, she suggested. Public dates, get comfortable. This was how we found ourselves at dinner the following night, then a beachside walk the night after. By our 3rd practice date at a wine bar, I found myself sharing things I'd never told anyone about the crushing expectations of my family, my actual policy dreams versus the watered-down campaign versions. Why politics? She asked, looking genuinely curious. It seems to make you miserable half the time. I considered the stock answer I always gave reporters, then remembered our honesty rule. I believe I can actually fix things. Not everything, but some things. The affordable housing crisis, environmental protections for the coastline. Not the answer I expected from someone with your family connections. I'm not always what people expect. Our eyes held for a beat too long. The charity gala arrived faster than I'd anticipated. It was my first time introducing Imogen as my fiancé in public, and my palms were sweating as we walked into the glittering hotel ballroom. She wore a deep green dress that matched her eyes, her blonde hair cascading over one shoulder. I couldn't stop staring. "Councilwoman Parker!" The mayor's wife approached, eyes immediately dropping to Imogen's hand. I'd given her my grandmother's emerald ring for authenticity. "And who is this lovely woman?" "This is Imogen Flores, my fiancée." The words felt foreign yet strangely right. Throughout the evening, Imogen charmed everyone she met. She knew my policy positions well enough to discuss them intelligently, deflected personal questions with practiced ease, and kept her hand firmly entwined with mine. By midnight, I'd forgotten we were pretending. Outside on the terrace, away from the crowd, Imogen leaned against the stone balustrade. "Your colleague Jenkins keeps hitting on me. He's a creep to all women. I'll have a word. My protective fiancé." She smiled, looking up at the stars. "You know, you're much nicer than the newspapers suggest. Don't tell anyone. It'll ruin my reputation." When she laughed, I couldn't help myself. I pulled her close and kissed her, forgetting entirely that no one was watching, that there was no audience to convince. Her arms wound around my neck as she kissed me back, the pretense falling away completely. The camera flash caught us by surprise. Beautiful moment. The event photographer beamed. "For the charity website?" Before we could object, he'd disappeared back into the crowd. By morning, the photo was everywhere: local news sites, social media, political blogs. "Councilwoman Parker's secret romance revealed," read one headline. My phone exploded with messages from my family and campaign team. "We're trending locally," Imogen said when she called, her voice unreadable. "Your kiss has gone viral." "I'm so sorry," I began, but she interrupted. "Don't be. That's what we wanted, right? Believability?" As I stared at the photograph, the way I was looking at her with unguarded adoration, I wasn't sure what was real anymore. The lines of our arrangement had begun to blur, and I was terrified to examine why my heart raced every time she entered a room. One thing was certain: there was no turning back now. "You should know that Councilman Davis has been asking questions." My campaign manager, Eliza, slid a folder across my desk. "About your sudden engagement." I flipped it open to find printouts of social media posts and database searches on Imogen. "He's investigating my personal life now?" "You're 10 points ahead in the polls. He's desperate." Eliza leaned forward. "He's hired someone to dig into your relationship timeline. Says it's conveniently timed for the conservative vote." My stomach tightened. Davis had been my rival since I'd first run for council, a calculating man from old money who viewed politics as his birthright. If anyone could expose our charade, it would be him. "Let him dig," I said with more confidence than I felt. "There's nothing to find." But there was plenty to lose. The viral kiss photo had unexpectedly boosted my approval ratings. The public loved a romance, and my family had tentatively accepted Imogen after seeing the positive press. The fake relationship was working too well to fall apart now. When I arrived at the gallery later that day, I found Imogen in an intense conversation with a striking redhead. They stood close, too close for strangers. The redhead touched Imogen's arm, and something hot and unwelcome flared in my chest. "Lindsay," Imogen spotted me, her expression flickering with guilt. "This is Vanessa. An old friend." Vanessa gave me a cool once-over. "So you're the politician." She extended a manicured hand. Imogen and I go way back. The way she emphasized way back made the nature of their history crystal clear. "Vanessa was just leaving," Imogen said quickly. "She's in town for a few days, visiting." "Actually, I'm considering moving back," Vanessa corrected, her eyes never leaving Imogen's face. "We have unfinished business." After she left, the silence between us stretched uncomfortably. "Ex-girlfriend?" I finally asked. Imogen nodded. 3 years ago. It ended badly. She moved to New York. And now she's back. Apparently. Imogen busied herself straightening frames. "It doesn't matter. We're ancient history." I wasn't sure why this bothered me so much. Our engagement was fake. Imogen was free to have any real relationship she wanted. Yet the thought of Vanessa pursuing her made me irrationally angry. "The gallery opening is tomorrow night," she said, changing the subject. "Will you still come?" "Of course," I promised. The exhibition was Imogen's first as lead curator. Coastal Perspectives, Environmental Art and Activism. The small gallery had been transformed, lighting perfect, each piece placed to create conversations between the artworks. Pride swelled in my chest watching her work the room, explaining her vision to patrons. "She's quite talented," said a voice beside me. Vanessa again, holding a glass of champagne. "In many ways." I forced a polite smile. "Yes, she is. You know, it's interesting. Imogen always said she'd never date someone in the public eye. Too much scrutiny." Her smile was predatory. "So either you're very special, or there's something else going on." Before I could respond, Imogen appeared, slipping her arm through mine. "The arts commissioner wants to meet you, babe." As she led me away, I whispered, "Your ex seems determined." "Ignore her," Imogen murmured. "Tonight is too important." And it was. The exhibition was a triumph. The reviews were glowing, and 3 major pieces sold within the first hour. By closing, Imogen was radiant with success. "You did it," I said as we entered my apartment after midnight. "They loved everything." "I couldn't have done it without your support." Her eyes shone with genuine emotion. "The commissioner's endorsement means everything for the gallery's future." I reached for the champagne I'd been saving. "This calls for a celebration." 2 glasses in, we'd moved to the couch, shoes kicked off, Imogen's head resting comfortably on my shoulder as she described her favorite pieces. "Why did you choose environmental art?" I asked. "The same reason you fight for environmental policies, to protect what matters." Something shifted between us in that moment, recognition of shared purpose beyond our arrangement. "Lindsay," she said softly, turning to face me. "What are we doing?" The question held weight far beyond the words themselves. My heart pounded as I traced the curve of her cheek. "I don't know anymore," I whispered. When our lips met, it wasn't for show. There was no audience, no cameras, no pretense. Her hands slipped beneath my blouse as mine tangled in her hair. Each touch was electric, awakening parts of me long dormant. We moved to the bedroom in a haze of desire, clothes marking our path. In the darkness, whispered confessions mingled with sighs of pleasure. Her body arched beneath mine, responsive to every caress. I lost myself in the taste of her skin, the soft sounds she made as I explored every curve. Later, breathless and entwined in sheets, reality slowly returned. This wasn't part of our arrangement. This was something far more complicated, something neither of us had planned for. "This changes things," she murmured against my shoulder. I tightened my arm around her. "Yes," I agreed. "It does." What exactly had changed? Neither of us was brave enough to name. Morning light filtered through the curtains, casting golden patterns across Imogen's bare shoulder. I'd awakened before her, giving me time to study her peaceful expression, the delicate curve of her spine. The weight of what had happened between us hung in the air, unspoken but undeniable. When her eyes fluttered open, uncertainty flickered across her face before she smiled. "Hi." "Hi," I echoed, suddenly shy despite our intimacy hours before. We moved carefully around each other that morning, stealing glances over coffee, hands brushing with deliberate casualness. The fragile new thing between us needed protection from reality. "Come away with me this weekend," I said impulsively. "I have a friend with a cottage up the coast. No phones, no politics, no exes or rivals." Her smile grew. "Just us?" "Just us." 2 days later, we were driving north along Pacific Coast Highway, windows down, salt air whipping our hair. Imogen controlled the playlist, an eclectic mix of indie bands I'd never heard, and classics we both sang along to. With each mile, I felt campaign pressures and family expectations receding. The cottage perched on a cliff overlooking a secluded stretch of beach, simple and rustic, with weathered blue shutters and a wraparound porch. The persistent crash of waves created constant background music. "It's perfect," Imogen breathed, dropping her bag to take in the panoramic ocean view. That evening, we walked barefoot along the shore as sunset painted the water in blazing oranges and pinks. No pretense, no audience, just 2 women getting to know each other through unguarded conversation. "What did you want to be when you were little?" she asked, nudging a shell with her toe. A marine biologist, actually. I was obsessed with tide pools and ocean conservation. What happened? I shrugged. Family legacy. Politics is the Parker blood sport. My rebellion was choosing environmental policy instead of finance or development. Do you regret it? The question hung between us, weighted with meaning, sometimes. But then I managed to get actual legislation passed, and it feels worth it. I turned to her. What about you? Always an artist? Always creative, not always brave enough to pursue it. She picked up a piece of sea glass, turning it in the fading light. I spent 3 years in marketing because it was practical. Hated every minute. What changed? My father died. Her voice grew quiet. Heart attack at 52. I realized time isn't guaranteed, and I was wasting mine being sensible. We cooked dinner together in the tiny kitchen, bumping hips and stealing kisses between chopping vegetables. The domesticity felt dangerously natural. Over wine and pasta, she recounted childhood stories of growing up in a household where art was valued above practicality. Your family sounds wonderful, I said, a touch of envy in my voice. They had their flaws, but they loved unconditionally. She studied me. You never talk about your parents. I stiffened automatically, then remembered our honesty pact. They died in a boating accident when I was 12. My aunt and uncle raised me with their children. I'm so sorry. They raised me to be useful, the perfect political asset. I rarely spoke about this. Grief wasn't productive, so we didn't discuss it. She reached across the table, entwining our fingers. What were they like? Your parents? No one had asked me that in years. Slowly, haltingly, I shared blurry memories. My mother's laugh, my father's passion for sailing, bedtime stories about brave ocean explorers. Thunder rumbled in the distance as rain began pecking at the windows. We moved to the porch swing, wrapped in blankets, watching lightning illuminate the churning sea. I'm scared, I admitted softly, the storm giving me courage, of whatever this is between us. Me too, she whispered. Politics doesn't allow vulnerability. Every relationship gets scrutinized, weaponized. I struggled to articulate feelings long suppressed. I've never let anyone close enough to matter. Do I matter? Her voice was barely audible above the rain. In answer, I traced the contours of her face with trembling fingers, memorizing every detail, the slight bump on her nose, the faint freckles across her cheeks, the fullness of her lower lip. When our mouths met, it felt like finding shelter in the storm. The kiss deepened, grew urgent. Her hand slipped beneath my sweater as thunder crashed overhead. The universe narrowed to just this, her touch, her taste, the sound of rain. The storm raged outside while we created our own magic within, protected by darkness and distance from the complications waiting back in reality. For this perfect suspended moment in time, nothing existed beyond us, beyond this cottage, beyond the truth neither of us was ready to name. The weekend away had changed something fundamental between us. Back in Huntington Beach, Imogen's toothbrush appeared in my bathroom. My spare key found its way onto her keyring. What had begun as performance art was becoming startlingly real. The West Coast Political Journal wants a feature interview, Eliza announced during our morning strategy session. They're calling you the Progressive's New Hope. They've requested Imogen participate. My coffee paused halfway to my lips. A joint interview? Your relationship has captured public interest. They want the love story. I should have been thrilled. This was exactly the kind of press that could push my campaign over the top. Instead, panic fluttered in my chest. Our carefully constructed narrative would face professional scrutiny. I'll talk to her, I promised. Imogen took the news better than expected. We know our story inside out, she said as we rehearsed potential questions that evening. Besides, half of it's true now anyway. The unacknowledged half hung between us. The journalist, Catherine Moore, arrived at my campaign office with a photographer and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She watched our interactions closely, noting how Imogen straightened my collar, how my hand automatically found the small of her back. So, the ceramic vase that started it all, Catherine smiled. May I see it? We'd anticipated this. The vase sat proudly on a shelf behind my desk. It's our relationship milestone marker, Imogen explained with practiced ease. Whenever we have a disagreement, we jokingly threaten to take back custody. Catherine laughed, scribbling notes. And the proposal, councilwoman? Was that planned or spontaneous? I recited our fabricated story about the sunset sailing trip, watching Catherine's expression shift subtly. She wasn't buying it. Interesting. Because according to records, you were at a budget committee meeting that evening. My smile froze. We'd picked a date without checking my public calendar. Imogen squeezed my hand. Lindsay's always mixing up dates. It was the following weekend. Her assistant can confirm. Catherine's eyes narrowed, but she moved on. By interview's end, sweat beaded along my hairline despite the office's aggressive air conditioning. That was close, I muttered after Catherine left. Too close, Imogen agreed. She's suspicious. The article appeared a week later, largely positive, but peppered with subtle questioning of our timeline. The accompanying photo captured us looking tense rather than in love. My campaign manager called immediately. Damage control. We need to increase your public appearances together. More authentic moments. She's right, Imogen said when I relayed the conversation. We need to be more convincing. But convincing wasn't our problem anymore. The problem was the blurring line between performance and reality, between political strategy and my increasingly real feelings. The next afternoon, I was due to speak at an environmental policy forum. Normally such events energized me, but today I struggled to focus, my mind drifting repeatedly to the woman sitting supportively in the front row. Midway through my speech on coastal preservation, my gaze locked with Imogen's. Something electric passed between us. I lost my place, stumbled over words, then recovered with a personal anecdote about how falling in love had deepened my commitment to preserving natural beauty. It wasn't planned, it wasn't political, it was embarrassingly genuine. Afterward, my senior advisor cornered me in the hallway. That speech was different. Good different? Emotional, authentic. He looked uncomfortable. But we need to discuss something. Davis's campaign is pushing a narrative that your relationship is conveniently timed. My heart raced. That's ridiculous. They're suggesting you manufactured a relationship to soften your image and neutralize traditional opposition. He lowered his voice. They claim to have proof. Before I could demand details, Imogen appeared, sliding her hand into mine. You were brilliant up there. The moment my advisor left, her smile faded. What's wrong? You look terrified. I pulled her into an empty conference room, explaining the threat. Her face paled. This could ruin your campaign, your career. I don't care about that right now, I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. I care about you, about us. She stepped closer. Even if there is no us? Not officially? The question held a challenge. We'd been living in limbo, neither acknowledging nor denying the reality of our feelings. Words failed me. Instead, I drew her against me, my mouth finding hers with desperate intensity. She responded immediately, backing me against the conference table, hands tangling in my hair. We shouldn't, I gasped as her lips traced my neck. Not here. Then take me home, she whispered. In my apartment, we barely made it through the door before clothes were discarded. Every touch carried urgency, as though we might be torn apart at any moment. I memorized her body with reverent hands, the softness of her inner thighs, the way she arched when I touched her just right, the breathless sounds she made as pleasure overtook her. Afterwards, reality intruded. My phone displayed 6 missed calls from my campaign office. They know, don't they? Imogen asked quietly. About us. The truth. I nodded slowly. I think they might. The question now was what we would do about it, and whether what we'd built could survive exposure. The Parker family estate loomed before us, Mediterranean architecture gleaming white against the sunset. Imogen squeezed my hand as we approached the massive front door. Remember, I whispered. My aunt uses political connections like weapons. Don't let her intimidate you. I grew up with an artist mother who threw pottery when she was angry, Imogen replied with a tight smile. I can handle passive-aggressive rich people. The door swung open before we could ring, revealing my Aunt Charlotte in a tailored navy dress, pearls gleaming at her throat. Lindsay, darling, and this must be the mysterious fiancé we've heard so much about. Her smile didn't reach her eyes as she assessed Imogen like a potential acquisition with questionable provenance. Dinner was an elegant affair, crystal glinting in candlelight, staff moving silently around us, tension thick beneath polite conversation. My Uncle Edward dominated the table, interrupting frequently to hold forth on politics. "So, Imogen," my aunt finally said during dessert, "tell us about your background." Lindsay's been surprisingly vague about details. "I grew up in Santa Barbara. My parents were both artists." "How bohemian. And your education?" "UC Santa Cruz, then a master's in fine arts management." My uncle cleared his throat. Hardly the pedigree we'd anticipated for Lindsay's partner. The Whitmans were so disappointed when she declined their son's interest. I gripped my fork tighter. Imogen's gallery is launching a prestigious new exhibition series. The governor himself attended her opening. My cousin Philip leaned forward. "Tell me, Miss Flores, when exactly did you and Lindsay become engaged? The timing seems convenient." Imogen set down her wine glass carefully. "What are you implying?" "Simply that Lindsay's poll numbers with conservative voters jumped 12 points after your relationship became public. Quite fortunate." The accusation hung in the air. I opened my mouth to respond, but Imogen beat me to it. "Let me be clear," she said, voice cool but firm. "I didn't fall in love with a poll number or a political strategy. I fell in love with a woman who stays up until 2 a.m. drafting affordable housing proposals, because she actually gives a damn about people who can't afford waterfront mansions." My aunt's eyebrows shot up. "I fell in love with someone who knows the names of every custodial staff member in City Hall," Imogen continued. "Someone who still keeps her parents' sailing logbook by her bedside even though she can't bear to open it." My chest tightened. I'd never told anyone about that logbook. "If you're looking for the political calculation in our relationship, you won't find it. What you will find is two people who recognize something rare in each other." She reached for my hand. "The rest is nobody's business but ours." The silence that followed was deafening. My uncle recovered first. "Well, you've certainly found someone passionate, Lindsay." "Yes," I said, throat tight with emotion, "I have." Later that night, driving home in silence, I finally found my voice. "How did you know about the logbook?" "I saw it when I was looking for a tissue. It's worn at the edges, but you keep it pristine. I figured it was important." "You were magnificent tonight." "Thank you." She stared out the window. I wasn't entirely acting. Before I could process that, my phone rang. Eliza's voice was tense. "We have a problem. Davis's team leaked something to the press. Photos of Imogen with Vanessa from last week looking intimate." My stomach dropped. "What?" "They're suggesting your engagement is a sham, and that Imogen is actually involved with someone else." I glanced at Imogen, who was watching me with concern. "Where did they get these photos?" "Coffee shop near the gallery. They look like surveillance shots. They're claiming a whistleblower found evidence your relationship was strategically timed for the campaign." After hanging up, I relayed the conversation to Imogen. Her face paled. "Vanessa came by the gallery last week. She was upset, crying about her mother's illness. I hugged her, that's all." She ran a hand through her hair. "Damn it, this is exactly what she wanted to cause problems. Or Davis set the whole thing up." I pulled into my parking space, mind racing. Either way, we need to get ahead of this story. Inside my apartment, we found the photos already circulating online. They were deliberately misleading angles chosen to suggest intimacy where there was only friendly comfort. "This could ruin everything," I said, pacing. "Your reputation, my campaign." "Is that all you care about?" Imogen's voice was quiet. "Your campaign?" I stopped short. "Of course not." "Then what do you care about, Lindsay? Because sometimes I don't know if any of this is real for you." The challenge in her eyes demanded honesty I'd been avoiding for weeks. "I care about you," I said finally. "More than I expected to. More than is politically convenient. And it terrifies me because I don't know if what you feel is real or part of our arrangement or pity or—" She silenced me with a kiss that left no room for doubt, her fingers weaving into my hair, pulling me closer until there was no space between pretense and truth. "Does that feel fake to you?" she whispered against my lips. Our kiss deepened, the looming scandal temporarily forgotten. In this moment, nothing existed but us, no photographs, no political rivals, no family expectations. Just two women finally acknowledging what had been true for longer than either would admit. "We need to get ahead of this," Eliza insisted, spreading printouts across my kitchen table. Morning sunlight illuminated screenshots of social media speculation and tabloid headlines. Davis is calling a press conference at noon. He's going to publicly challenge the authenticity of your relationship. My campaign team had assembled for emergency damage control. Coffee cups littered every surface as staffers worked phones and laptops. Imogen sat slightly apart, watching the political machine in full crisis mode. What are our options? I asked. Counter press conference. Present a united front. Dismiss the photos as a friendly moment taken out of context. Eliza's efficiency was both comforting and terrifying. We need your prepared statement within the hour. A speechwriter pushed a draft toward me, perfectly crafted political language, emphasizing my commitment to transparency and condemning dirty tactics. The words felt hollow, rehearsed. Another performance in a long series of performances. I glanced at Imogen. She'd been quiet all morning, her expression unreadable. Last night's moment of honesty between us felt fragile in the harsh light of political reality. Can I have the room? I asked suddenly. Just for a minute. Reluctantly, my team filed out. When the door closed, I turned to Imogen. I'm sorry you got dragged into this mess. I agreed to it, remember? Her smile was sad, though I don't think either of us expected complications. Emotional complications, genuine feelings. The elephant in every room we occupied. What do you want to do? I asked her. What do you want, Lindsay? Not the candidate you. The question hit harder than she could know. For years, what I wanted had been secondary to what would advance my career, what would please my family, what would resonate with voters. My voice caught. I want to stop pretending. She stood, crossing to where I sat. Which part? Any of it. All of it. I looked up at her. I'm tired of calculated statements and strategic relationships. I'm tired of being the perfect Parker politician. Then don't be. She brushed hair from my face with gentle fingers. Be Lindsay instead. My phone buzzed insistently, Eliza, no doubt wondering if I'd approved the statement. I ignored it. I need to make a decision about the press conference, I said. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. She squeezed my hand. Real or pretend, your choice. An hour later, I stood before a forest of microphones in the City Hall plaza. Cameras flashed as reporters shouted questions. Imogen had offered to stand beside me, but I'd asked her to wait backstage. This moment needed to be mine alone. I looked down at the carefully crafted statement in my hands, then deliberately folded it and slipped it into my pocket. Thank you all for coming, I began. I understand Councilman Davis has raised questions about my personal life and suggested my relationship with Imogen Flores is politically motivated. The crowd quieted, sensing deviation from the expected script. The truth is, I took a deep breath, the truth matters to me. It should matter in politics, though too often it doesn't. My campaign manager shifted nervously at the side of the stage. Imogen and I met exactly as we've described, arguing over a ceramic vase that we both wanted. What I haven't shared is that our relationship began as an arrangement. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras clicked frantically. My family was pressuring me into an arranged match with a politically advantageous man. In a moment of panic, I claimed to be engaged to someone else. That someone became Imogen. I could practically feel my poll numbers plummeting in real time. But strangely, I didn't care. What began as pretense has become the most authentic thing in my life. I've spent years crafting the perfect political image, saying what focus groups want to hear. With Imogen, I discovered what it means to be truly seen and accepted. At the edge of the stage, Eliza was signaling frantically for me to stop. I ignored her. I'm not asking for your vote because I have the perfect relationship or personal story. I'm asking for your vote because I believe in transparent governance, environmental protection, and affordable housing. Judge me on policy, not personal drama. The questions exploded immediately. Are you still engaged? Was it all fake? Will this affect your campaign? The engagement began as pretense, I acknowledged. The feelings are real. The rest is between Imogen and me. I departed the podium amid shouted questions, heart pounding but feeling lighter than I had in years. Backstage, my team looked shell-shocked. You just torpedoed your campaign, Eliza said flatly. Maybe. Or maybe voters will appreciate honesty for once. I searched for Imogen, but the backstage area was empty. A staff member mentioned seeing her leave during my speech, expression unreadable. When I returned to my apartment that evening, I found it unnervingly quiet. The ceramic vase still stood on the mantel, but Imogen's books were gone from the coffee table, her toothbrush missing from the bathroom. On the kitchen counter sat a handwritten note. "You were brave today. I need time to think." I sank onto the couch, the emptiness of the apartment matching the hollow feeling in my chest. For the first time in my political career, I had chosen authenticity over strategy. The cost remained to be seen. Election night. The community center hummed with nervous energy as results trickled in. Campaign volunteers huddled around laptops, cheering or groaning with each precinct report. I moved through the crowd in a daze, accepting congratulations and encouragement with practiced smiles that never reached my eyes. A week had passed since Imogen had walked out. A week of unanswered texts and calls going straight to voicemail. A week of sleeping beside the ceramic vase I'd moved to my nightstand, pathetic as that was. "We're up by 3 points, Eliza reported, appearing at my elbow with a tablet displaying colorful graphs. "Davis's attempt to paint you as calculating backfired after your press conference. Turns out voters appreciated the honesty." The irony wasn't lost on me. Coming clean about our fake relationship had somehow boosted my political fortunes. But the victory felt hollow without Imogen to share it. "Have you heard from her?" Eliza asked, her tone gentler than usual. I shook my head. "The gallery says she took personal leave. She'll come around." But I wasn't so sure. In breaking from political calculation, I'd made a unilateral decision that affected us both. I'd exposed our private arrangement without consulting her. Whatever real feelings had grown between us, my actions had broken trust. "Lindsay," my uncle approached, looking uncommonly approving. "The polling trends are excellent. Your honesty gambit was unexpected but effective." Even now, he saw only strategy where there had been genuine emotion. "It wasn't a gambit," I said quietly. "It was the truth." He waved dismissively. "Semantics. The point is, you've managed to strengthen your position. The progressive authenticity angle plays well." I excused myself, needing air. Outside the community center, the night was clear and cool, stars visible despite the city lights. I thought about the weekend at the cottage, watching lightning over the ocean with Imogen beside me. That had felt more real than this entire campaign. "Councilwoman Parker." A reporter called, approaching with microphone extended. "How does it feel to be on the verge of making history as Huntington Beach's youngest mayor?" I gave an autopilot response about being honored by voter trust. The words felt empty. What was the point of winning if I'd lost the one person who'd made me feel truly alive? Back inside, the atmosphere had shifted. A major network had just called the race. My staff erupted in cheers as I was ushered toward the stage. Campaign signs waved. Supporters chanted my name. Confetti began falling from strategically placed dispensers. I scanned the crowd automatically, knowing it was foolish to hope. The speech I'd prepared sat crisp and ready in my jacket pocket, words about unity and progress and bright futures. As I moved through the crowd, accepting hugs and handshakes, a flash of blonde hair near the back door caught my eye. My heart stuttered. There, partially obscured by taller supporters, stood Imogen. Our eyes met across the room. She didn't smile, didn't wave, just watched, expression guarded. I changed direction immediately, ignoring calls from staff to head to the stage. People tried to intercept me with congratulations, but I moved past them. Focus narrowed to the woman by the door. "You came," I said when I reached her, voice barely audible above the celebration. "I saw your speech on TV," she replied, the honest one. "I'm sorry I didn't consult you first. I just couldn't do it anymore, the pretending, the calculation." She studied me, searching for something in my expression. "Which part were you tired of pretending about?" The question contained everything: our arrangement, our evolving feelings, our future. "Not us," I said firmly. "Never us." That became the most real thing in my life. Behind me, Eliza was frantically signaling from across the room. The crowd was chanting for a victory speech. "I have to go up there," I said reluctantly, "but please, don't leave, not again." "I'm not going anywhere," Imogen said. "Go be Madam Mayor." On stage, beneath bright lights and facing hundreds of supporters, I pulled out my prepared speech. The words blurred before me, political platitudes carefully crafted to offend no one and inspire everyone. I set it aside. Thank you for your trust, I began instead, searching the crowd until I found Imogen's face. When I started this campaign, I thought I knew exactly who I was and what I wanted. I was wrong. The room quieted. I learned that authenticity isn't a campaign strategy, it's a way of living. I learned that plans and calculations can't predict the most important things in life. My eyes held Imogen's, like falling in love when you least expect it. After the speech, after the handshakes and media interviews, I found Imogen waiting by the exit. Without hesitation, I pulled the ring from my pocket, not my grandmother's emerald that we'd used for show, but a simple band I'd purchased the day after she left. This isn't for cameras, I said quietly. It's not for voters or family expectations or political advantage. It's just for us. Real this time. In the silence that followed, I saw our fabricated history transform into possibility, genuine memories yet to be made, challenges faced together, a life beyond performance. When she finally smiled, it outshone all the camera flashes in the room.